I feel like this year was proof that most of these aging 80s thrash metal musicians can still kick your ass.
Who do you think you are, huh?
I fought in 2 world wars and countless smaller ones on 3 continents. I led thousands of men into battle with everything from horses and swords to artillery and tanks. Kill many men!
Yes, today we are ranking thrash metal albums from 2023, starting with Cavalera with Morbid Visions and Bestial Devastation. Now, I was fully prepared for these remakes to absolutely suck, but goddamn, did Max knock it out of the park. The most obvious difference here right off the bat is in terms of the atmosphere, for sure, with the original sounding a bit more evil, I would say, but the new version sounding just angry as fuck. Delivering a bit more energy with that entombed HM2 buzzsaw guitar sound, it's clear that this was a labor of love, and Max also really put his all into the vocal performance. You can never replace the original, but it maintains the same spirit, I think, while giving it sort of a modern twist, and I'd put it in my top 5 thrash albums of the year, honestly. So I'm going to put it up at perfection, and I am kind of grouping them together. Also, just a little reminder that obviously this is not an exhaustive list of every thrash metal release so far this year. Feel free to add other ones and where you would rank them in the comments down below. But next up, we have Destructor with Blood, Bone, and Fire. So this Cleveland band was formed in 1984 and leaned more on kind of classic heavy metal influences when it comes to both riffs and vocals. I think the performances are objectively good, especially for a band this far into their career, but I'm just not as much into this style. I tend to prefer things a little bit more harsh and grimy. Just a personal preference, really. If you like more operatic vocals, I could see other ones putting this much higher, but for me personally, it's just going to okay. Then we have Voivod with Morgöth Tales. Another really solid set of remade tracks here, but much like Sodom's 40 Years at War last year, Morgöth Tales is a compilation as opposed to a remake of any single album. It kind of covers things from across their entire discography, and in my opinion, Synchro Anarchy found the band back on top of their game. So to hear that sound injected into some of their best material is pretty awesome. Again, there's no replacing the originals, especially when it comes to classics like Killing Technology, Dimension Hatros, and Nothing Face. But considering I don't much care for some of the mid-career albums, the new paint job on these does strike me as an improvement. So I'm going to put this one at great tier. Next up is Legion of the Damned, The Poison Chalice. They were originally founded in 1990 as a cult, and this Dutch band reformed under their current name in 2005. I haven't really been following their output too closely, but their death thrash vibe and solid riffing definitely caught my attention. Overall, I like what I hear, but I keep finding myself saying, yeah, it's good, but it's no Possessed. You know what I'm... But maybe that's unfair, and I just can't shake the comparison, though, personally. Regardless, plenty of great guitar work and menacing vocals. It just isn't super memorable, in my opinion. I do recommend the tracks Progressive Destructor, Skulls Adorn the Traitor's Gate, and Savage Intent. I'm going to put this one at good tier. Then we have Dead Heat with Endless Torment. Time for some more Killer California crossover thrash, going fast and hard in the vein of Power Trip, and right from the top, Endless Torment just serves up some shredding riffs and serious attitude and never really lets up. And you've still got 4 ragers after that to contend with so much DB to like Smite Thee or fun use of Vibra-Slap on the intro of Eyes of the Rhea. If I even wrote that down right, that sounds weird, but anyways, Tears of the Wolf, bringing a bit more of that classic heavy metal flavor, but in a way that I enjoy, I think, a bit more. And then finally, Hard Reset sets up a false sense of security with its chill acoustic before just torching everything to the ground. It may be short, but man, does this one leave me ready for more. I'm putting this one at fantastic. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, as always, be sure to hit the like button, and again, help me out by commenting where you might even disagree with some of these albums, because this is all subjective after all. But next up, we have Holy Moses with Invisible Queen. Another returning legacy act, with this being the first album from this classic German band in almost a decade. The guitar work on this album is just absolutely dizzying, and Sabina's vocals just sickening in the best possible way. Absolutely disgusting. They also vary up the pacing pretty well with tracks like Visions in Red and Forces Great and Hidden, bringing some proggier sections that at times even feel vaguely psychedelic. Honestly, in some ways, this captures some of the same energy that made me love Voivod's Synchro Anarchy last year, just with the aggression ramped up to 11 and a production job that has no interest in the normies out there by any means. It is pretty rough and rugged, and I love it for that. It's going to perfection. Next up is Pizza Death with Reign of the Anticrust.
Pizza time.
I had a handful of people in the comments and Discord recommend this album to me, and as far as that pizza-loving crossover thrash goes, this is easily the most fun you can have outside of Municipal Waste. As I said in that monthly roundup, 20 tracks all under 2 minutes or less, and every single one of them bringing equal parts headbanging and humor. I think the next logical step, as I also said, is for them to do like a concept album and comic book with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Just seems like it has to happen. That would be a missed opportunity if it doesn't. I'm putting them at great tier. All right, Sadistic Force with Midnight Assassin. This is an Austin-based blackened speed metal band, not only bringing some killer riffs, but also it's a great October listen, given the 80s slasher inspirations on the lyrics and the imagery. Major dirtbag energy all over this thing too, with grimy vocals and hooks clearly inspired by the likes of Motorhead and Venom. Definitely not very politically correct either, I would say. If I could make one critique, I do think that the songs are longer than they need to be, kind of for what it is. I just think it would be a lot more focused, and I'd enjoy it more all the way through if they didn't feel the need to kind of like repeat things over and over again. So for that reason, it ended up landing at okay, but this thing was on my best of October list, and so that just goes to show the level of quality on display here. Even the lower albums are worth checking out. This is really just an excuse for me to showcase as much music as possible instead of just doing top 10 lists like I usually do. Next up is Terrifier with Trample the Weak, Devour the Dead. From that very first chorus of Trial by Combat, I fucking fell in love with this Canadian band, and I love that they really worship that 80s sound, fusing the raging thrash attack of bands like Exodus with some wild melodic death metal riffs in places too. Forced to be reckoned with, this one, and it was a great way to kind of start off the year, because they were an earlier release. I can't remember if this was January or February, but yeah, really good. Just a fire hose of hooks and shredding solos that should please old school and modern fans alike. Check out Bones of the Slain or Grinding the Blade if you think that spirit of classic era metal is dead, especially from newer bands. Renee Wilkinson, just as I put it in my roundup that month, I think he sold his soul to the devil for some of this guitar work. It is pristine. Fantastic stuff. So it is going to fantastic. Then we have God Slut with Procreation of God. One of my favorite band names on this list for a group that does sound just as in your face and sacrilegious as you would expect from it. They are a Polish trio, truly unholy fusion of death and thrash. Again, kind of feels like Vader and Decapitated on bath salts. Blazing riffs, scorching solos torch their way through this album. By the time you get to Chaos, it's just done. It's just done and over with. And they slow things down sometimes too. Just no relief. It was a little inconsistent, and again, like steep competition on this list. But again, like even the lower stuff here is good. But this one just ended up landing at good tier, maybe a little bit higher than Legion of the Damned. Next up, we have Enforced with War Remains. This Richmond band continues to bring the real goods when it comes to modern thrash metal, just fully understanding the assignment. Speaking of shorter songs, like these guys get it. They know what they do. They want to go hard and fast and leave you wanting more instead of feeling like you're wasting your time. To me, that's what thrash is all about, unless you're getting into like prog thrash, but absolute riff city again, vicious hardcore tin vocals and dark atmosphere, again kind of some comparisons to Power Trip here maybe. It's not winning any awards for being anything new and original, but if you just, again, you want aggressive nihilistic thrash, just what the doctor ordered, it is going to perfection. Then we have The Bleeding with Monocrator. The riffs on this positively pummeling with the perfect cross of bands like Sodom and Holy Moses with a brutal dose of Cannibal Corpse and Dying Fetus. So yes, more death thrash here. Tracks Union of Horror and Chainsaw Death Cult, also showcasing plenty of punk influence with that rumbling bass and the relentless D beats. Plenty of riffs and harsh vocals teetering into blackened thrash territory as well, even right from the start with Chemical Lobotomy and the Cattle Decapitation meets Skeleton Witch vibes of Scream of Torment. This one is going to great tier. Then there's Angelus Apatrida with Aftermath. This is a Spanish thrash metal band that's been putting out albums since 2006, and this is a pretty strong effort. Another band I haven't really been following, but I was really impressed with the guitar work, lots of memorable riffing, pounding drums, definitely got my head banging on tracks like Scavenger, Snob, and Cold. Some pretty varied guest appearances here too, with things you wouldn't expect, like Jamie Josta, in addition to Pablo Garcia from Warcry and Todd LaTorre of Queensryche. Also some groove metal influences too. I was hearing some Lamb of God, Soulfly kind of stuff coming through in certain areas. And also Guillermo, the vocalist, he kind of sounds like Max Cavalera at times. Unfortunately, he does some yarling. And y'all know I'm just not down with the yarling, and that will instantly almost kill an album for me. And so that did drag it down quite a bit. Like when I first listened to like the early songs on the album, I was like, oh, this is fantastic tier. But it ended up dropping down to good. But again, still very much worth listening to, and it's all subjective. Ooh, then we have the new Sadist, The Shadow Inside. Yet another awesome comeback album from a band I really didn't expect to hear from at all. Like, there's so many bands coming back, and this was not one I was anticipating. And definitely a bummer to not have Steve DiGiorgio on bass, because he really is the man, and it probably would have been even better without him. But I must say, even without him, the bass work is fantastic. The riffing is great as usual. The drumming is fantastic. I hear elements of like all different thrash metal bands coming through on here too, and I said that in the specific tier list I did for the Sadist discography. A little Metallica, a little Exodus, Overkill, Slayer, Sodom, like it's all in there. It's not maybe as technical as some of their other albums, it's not as experimental as some of their other albums, but I'd honestly put it in their top 3. Like it's a really strong album, so it ended up at fantastic for me. Nocturnal Breed, Carry the Beast. More black and thrash with kind of a 90s sound. Cool riffs, but the vocals can get a little annoying on this one. I like the kind of Absu-like syncopated approach, but their high-pitched tone gets a little grating for me. Not a ton else to say, but I'm interested to hear more from these guys. They landed at okay. Then we had Knife with Heaven into Dust. Some thrash metal mixed with sort of a speed metal slant and a touch of black metal in the vocals. These guys are from Germany, but I'd say they actually have more in common with stuff like Razor. So yeah, really strong stuff for a debut, which is notable. High energy, great riffs with Torches They March, also showing that they're capable of more melodic heavy metal influenced tracks. Seems like this would be really fun live. It definitely made an impression on me, and it seems like it made an impression on a lot of people. I'm putting it at fantastic. One of my personal picks here, we have Necropanther with Betrayal. One of my favorite underground bands, melding black and thrash with melodic death metal again, and yeah, just kind of a broad variety of influences. I even debated including them on here, but ultimately I think there's enough thrash in here to warrant it. But then you could say, oh, maybe Ex Mortis should have been on here too, which it's not. It's on the Melodeath list. My list, my rules. Great riffs. On display alone is worth the price tag. And then I love their conceptual side too. Like each album covers different like fictional works. So they've done Dune, they've done Logan's Run, but this one is a combination of 1979's The Warriors and the ancient Greek story of Anabasis, which apparently is the inspiration for The Warriors, which I didn't know until they told me about that. So love this album. It is great. Please check it out. It's on Bandcamp before Bandcamp dies, apparently. That's depressing. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's going to perfection. All right, another early thrash album for me this year is Ansilu with Ex Nihilo. Yeah, this one came out in January. It was a great way to kick off the genre for the year. Chuggy hooks, shredding solos. Vocals feel like kind of a cross between Steve Souza and Thomas Lindberg, making quite the impression. Two very distinct voices combined into one. I also love how this treads a line between traditional thrash and some pretty crushing, again, Lamb of God-esque groove on tracks like Mental Graveyard. There are one point of mild criticism. I do think that Timu, who's the vocalist, could vary up his vocals a bit more, as they can also get a little bit grating. But other than this, just really solid thrasher. It's kind of like the top of great tier. All right, then we have Methane with Kill It With Fire. Nice Swedish underground release that came up in my Best of Bandcamp monthly series and just had to sneak its way on here because it's just a really solid, crunchy album with all the genre's best qualities on display. Really solid production, great riffs, awesome energy with some crossover vibes to the vocals, fun use of samples too. Just very tight, 7 songs, no filler. And yeah, it was great to see an underdog just go bam, right to fantastic tier, probably somewhere in here. Oh, then we have Overkill with Scorched. Now, I wasn't particularly enthusiastic going into this one based on the pretty paint-by-number singles, and I've just never been a huge Overkill fan. They've got kind of a consistently inconsistent discography, is the way I would put it, after having gone through all of them this year. You can check out that video as well. But this ended up being another legacy act, just surprising me this year. Opening track really sets a high bar from the start with those triumphant tapping guitars and great riffing on the bass too. Similar notes for Twist of the Wick, which became a standout on the first listen, as did Harder They Fall. Still has some somewhat weaker songs, a little bit inconsistent, but overall, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I did. I had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, it is going to great tier, is probably somewhere in there. Then we've got Avarice with Avarice. Just a solid death thrash album, great riffs, the bass is like a damn bulldozer on this thing. Super aggressive, gets you head bobbing, and definitely pit worthy at times. The main thing that drags it down is, again, the lack of vocal dynamics. That's a big point of contention for me. Those are like the two things, the two sins you can commit the most, I feel, for me, is your songs are too long and don't have enough going on to keep me engaged all the way through, or your vocals are just da 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 da, like all, I hate that. It just bores me. So yeah, it gets a little bit grating. So that dragged this down to okay, but again, worth checking out. You might have a different opinion, and I'm interested to hear more. All right, Cruel Force, Dawn of the Axe. Very solid German speed and thrash metal that sounds, again, straight out of the 80s. Love the retro production, too. I love it when they get it right. So much reverb and echo on the drums, in particular, sounding incredible. Plenty of Venom vibes, and rather than just going for sheer speed, there's also a number of ups and downs to keep things interesting. And yeah, not the most standout thing on this list, but if you're, again, just aching for a band with that early 80s sound and some of that, again, like that more kind of Venom vibe, then you'd be enjoying yourself with this one. It's going to good tier. All right, we have Strike Master with Tangram Apocalypse. This is the 6th full-length album from this Mexico-based band. Fantastic musicianship here. Walter Kleinert delivering some amazing bass parts, and ex-Vital Remains drummer Conspirator abusing the kit. And then the guitar work is honestly among the best performances on this list, with tons of shredding and great hooks. Unfortunately, I'm less sold on his vocal performance again. Like, I dig the voice and the sense of attitude, but the syllables often feel like they're just sort of thrown in very haphazardly. You might have even heard that in the clip that I use. So yeah, this one is going to good tier as well. But then we have Hellripper with Warlock's Grim and Withered Hags. Black and Thrash continuing to be my favorite style of thrash, and Hellripper out here once again just showing how it's done. Like, they're, in my opinion, they're like the best of the best when it comes to this style right now. There's a few other bands I throw in there, but truly wicked stuff. Wailing solos, chugging triplets, Eye the Deceiver, the Hissing Marches, Goat Vomit Nightmare, just pure unadulterated headbang frenzies of punky D-beats, Motorhead hooks, Maiden-esque harmonies, and rumbling bass grooves, and it just always puts a smile on my face. This one again hit early in the year, and it held its spot the entire year. This may be one of my most re-listened albums of the year, and man, did it set the tone. It is easily going to perfection. I think it's not only one of my favorite thrash metal albums of the year, it's one of my favorite albums of the year. And then, of course, we have Metallica with 72 Seasons. So look, I know this is not really a thrash album, but to have a thrash list and not include Metallica just would seem insane to me. And it's like, you lose either way. I'm going to get comments if I include them. I'm going to get comments if I don't include them. And so, fuck you. Again, it's my list. I don't give a shit. I do what I want. Suck it! I feel like I made my opinions pretty clear in the videos leading up to this. I did that new Metallica discography tier list, and honestly, I didn't hate this album. Like, I really expected to just think it was just absolute trash, but then some of the singles came, and I was like, you know what, it's not so bad. So, far from terrible, and it surprised me on some level, but it's easily dead last here. Again, when it comes to both new acts and old acts from around the same time, there's just too much exciting thrash out there coming out now for me to just really care. So yeah, it's going to the bottom of okay. Y'all check out this playlist for more thrash metal rankings, including discographies of many of these bands and more. And yeah, again, comment your favorites, your least favorites, and stay tuned because I'm going to be doing these for basically every genre this year. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.